Welcome to Sticking to the Truth with Julene Jackson and Debbie Jansen. Several years ago, President Trump said that we were going to get tired of winning. Now, I'm not sure anyone ever gets tired of winning in that they want it to stop, but you can get to the point to where your emotional investment in winning causes a little bit of fatigue. This week has been phenomenal. We all were reeling from the death of Charlie Kirk, only to emotionally spin around and watch this nation grow with enthusiasm and faith-based hope. We cried and yet felt an unusual spiritual wind carry us to new heights. We felt we were soaring on the wings of angels. And then another spin, and we saw violence and hatred rearing its ugly head across America, and the fight was on. And now this week, we watched hostages that had been in captivity and tortured for over 2 years come home and hug their loved ones. I hope you feel what I feel, because there is a wind blowing across this country, a spiritual wind of repentance, joy, commitment, and best of all, peace. A wind that causes all of us to want to regain our purpose and achieve great goals. So join us today as we talk about the great accomplishments we are witnessing and how you can be part of the new glorious rebirth that's happening in America. Julene, do you feel that wind?
I love a spiritual wind. When I think of wind, I think, oh no, my hair. So I've got all my cans of hairspray and my tie backs ready. And it's okay if I get a little tousled in the wind, because it is really exciting. We can feel it, right?
Right.
It's like almost giving us a new little lift to our step. I just love to see the admiration and respect for America and for our leadership in the world rising. You can see it when Trump goes to visit. Remember a few months ago, Dubai and Qatar and just England recently, and most recently, a few days ago, when he stepped off the plane and giant billboards thanking him in Israel and even Egypt. I love how he is taking peace to the world. He is trying to make peace. That's a biblical concept, and God blesses his children when they seek to be peacemakers. And I just love to see, he got it going. Those hostages came home. They have some sort of peace agreement, and it might be fragile, but the hostages have been returned, and that is a pretty darn good start. And his enemies are almost speechless, right? And the world leaders have nothing but praise, really, for what President Trump in America has been able to do over there. I mean, we are seeing what competent leadership looks like, and it's invigorating and inspiring for everyone. All nations of the earth are respecting him and respecting the work that his administration and Americans who are getting behind him are doing. And you could see it upon his arrival and when he left. And the crowds are just, even right up to the plane, there was just, a group of people wanting to get a last handshake and an acknowledgement and a kiss. And it's amazing to see a man who can get the job done. It's invigorating and it fills you with hope.
Oh, you are so right, Julene. You are so right. And I can imagine, because I feel like it, I can imagine people that are running up and trying to see Trump or any of the cabinet members or any of the people that are working for them. They probably feel like I do. And I feel like I'm part of something bigger than anything I've ever experienced in my life. I listen to commentators and news personalities talking about God and how they are touched by the very mention of God. And that just has never happened. We are in a new, wonderful age where people are wanting to talk about their feelings and wanting to talk about good things. And I've never heard so many reporters bring God, love, and Christianity into the newsroom and into news reports. I even heard one very popular news reporter say that she believed God and faith was the most important thing in this country, and she was glad to see it growing. And I didn't even know she was a Christian, but to say that on major news program, the wind is blowing, Julene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do think, Deb, it starts at the top, right? That which is important to the leader of the home, of the corporation, of the nation, it trickles down. And we're not saying Donald Trump was an altar boy, right? But you just look at what he does. He allowed, or I say allowed, he supported, he was there, that 5-hour revival with Charlie Kirk, and the beautiful testimonies that were born from those that were there. And certainly even, a year previously, when President Trump, the assassination attempt, and from that point on, he began to bear witness of God and God's protecting hand. And so, because he speaks about it and he gives the audience for his administration, he upholds. I mean, just yesterday, he presented the Medal of Freedom posthumously to Erica Kirk. It was Charlie's would have been his 32nd birthday. It's been a little bit over a month. And look, I think they set it apart as a day of remembrance for Charlie Kirk, October 14th. He'll be on the history of America. And so you can see he upholds men of faith, men and women of faith. And said Charlie was the most fearless warrior for God and for liberty. And his example of giving voice and acknowledgement to those kind of people has helped galvanize all of our faith to, speak. As he speaks freely of it, we speak freely of it. And certainly the example of Charlie Kirk's life, the boldest Christian that has ever lived in my lifetime, how it has galvanized the young people. I was reading that Turning Point USA has doubled in the last month. The inquiries for new chapters in high school and universities has doubled. The membership amongst the young members student network is 800,000 young people. And so, I do believe it starts at the top because President Trump talks about it. He puts people around him who are people of faith. He upholds people of faith, living and dead. And we're seeing the impact that it is having on our nation. It's electric. For people that believe, we feel it. I live in Washington, D.C. Not a lot of people go to church here. So they're not exactly electrified in a positive way. They are just churning, and they continue to have eyes and not see. They continue to think that life as they know it will be over in a year from now, that he's a great destroyer. But the world, it is undeniable. And when you have eyes to see, it's not just Americans of faith, but the world faithful people are upholding him, and the crowds are coming out, and it's sweeping the world, I think.
Oh, of course it is. And you are so right. Even in the middle of a new focus on God, Satan is still behind the scenes looking for ways to stop our progress or to pull us down. That's why we can't get discouraged. We have to stay focused on our goals. We have to be in tune with our heavenly focus and cling to his promises. Now, I may have quoted this guy before, but he's one of my favorite authors, and that's Mark Batterson. In fact, his church is there in D.C., Julene, and we're going to have to get together and go see him. I read the following passage, or I read the following passage at least twice a week because it's so inspiring and it keeps me going. In his book, All In, he said, "When did we start believing that God wants to send us to safe places to do easy things? That faithfulness is holding the fort, that playing it safe is safe, that there's any greater privilege than sacrifice, that radical is anything but normal, You see, Jesus didn't die to keep us safe. He died to make us dangerous. Faithfulness is not holding the fort. It's storming the gates of hell. The will of God is not an insurance plan. It's a daring plan. And the complete surrender of your life to the cause of Christ isn't radical. It's normal. It's time to quit living as if the purpose of life is to arrive safely at death. It's time to go all in and all out for the all in all. Oh, I love that quote. It gets me going every time I read it, because our fight is not a fight with mortals or other humans or our friends or churches or even presidents. Our fight is within the spiritual world. The spirit of Mark's quote is why we are feeling changes in America. It's that same spirit that guided Charlie Kirk and what he had, and we are just basking in that spirit in America right now. And we can't let this time go by. We have to make the best use of it. The hostages came home. And we saw those wonderful stories, and we cried with every one of those families. They are home. They are safe. However, it doesn't mean that evil has left the planet. Hamas still exists. Evil people are out there around the world and in America, and we've seen that. We are making great strides, and we can say Hamas is defeated for now. But I'm going to let you answer this question, Julene, because my question is a difficult one, and I'm going to direct it right to you. Who is running what's left of Hamas, and who is running Palestine? Do you know?
Yeah, well, that's no softball question. Thanks, Deb. I don't think anyone really knows. Look, their leader was actually killed last year in 2024. So Hamas is one of the two major political parties in Palestine. And their whole premise is that they're this militant movement against Israel. So they are Islamic, right? And they actually govern the Gaza area of Palestine. So they oversee about 2 million citizens in that region there. And they were founded, this party, the Hamas party, one of the political parties in Palestine, was founded about 40 years ago. And it was born out of the first uprising when Israel came in and began to occupy Gaza and the West Bank. And that's a conversation for another day. Why did Israel do that in the 1980s? And so Hamas, rose up, and now they oversee the military operations for the government in that region and distributes, humanitarian aid. But their leader was killed last year. So now there's like this temporary council that exists. And they said that they were going to have elections in March of this year. But because of the Gaza war, they've still been operating in this kind of secretive council, really. But I believe it was this council that negotiated for this recent peace agreement that we've seen in the last few days with Israel and Donald Trump and his people helping to broker that. So, are they good, upstanding men? No, I don't think so, because you just look at the fruits of this party, right? They kill, they slaughter, they've done very ungodly things in the name of their God. And so, we don't really know. There's not a lot of transparency. So there's not actually one leader right now. And I do think the peace agreement is fragile, right? Because they're not exactly upstanding men that are men of honor and of their word. But this is a huge step, don't you think, to have the hostages? Because Israel, as the Hamas government continue to hold back the hostages, Israel continued to bomb them. And so President Trump said, this slaughter, enough is enough. And he was able to do something that the former administration for the last 2 years couldn't, right? It only escalated. And so I do think the hostages coming home is a big step in the right direction. And I think that there is a lot of infighting within this organization now because their leader was killed a year ago. And so it's a tenuous situation with that party and that Hamas government that oversees that region of Palestine, the Gaza, West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yes, thank you so much for that. If I need research, I go to Julene. Especially if it's political, you can get into it. I didn't know all of that, and thank you for giving us that perspective. I'm going to throw something in here. I saw this morning when I was having breakfast, I watched a little bit of the news, and there were a lot of people talking about, or the hostages were talking about, the fact that their captors were not just the normal military Hamas killing guys. Their captors were doctors and lawyers. And one guy said the man that was so brutal to him was a kindergarten teacher. And so the evil of the thought process that Hamas has penetrated into the normal everyday people in Palestine. And this group, then it's going to be a what do they say in English? A sticky wicket, or a bunch of snaky pits to try to get in there and change the thinking of those people for peace. So you're exactly right. Peace may be here right now, but it's going to be an ongoing process. And I think trying to get this peace deal to stick with Hamas will probably be a monumental feat. But I have hope, because Monday, President Trump gave a speech before the Knesset. Is that how you say it? Knesset, which is Israel's parliament. And in his speech, he gave Steve Witkoff a lot of praise. Now, Witkoff was the negotiator for this deal. And Trump said that Steve was just a likable guy and that he always tried to get to know people he was working with so he could get a better deal. Then Trump told a story about how Witkoff worked. He said he made great strides with Hamas. And after Trump and Witkoff had done that with Hamas, Trump asked him to give Putin a call. So Trump was informed that Witkoff was on the phone with Putin, and Trump waited 30 minutes to call Witkoff and see what happened. Well, when he called back, his secretary said Witkoff was still on the phone, and Trump called 4 more times, thinking the call would have ended, and each time Witkoff was still on the phone. In the final analysis, Witkoff talked with Putin for over 5 hours. And Trump was talking about how that incredible that is, because you usually don't get a head of state or a president of a country or anybody to talk to you for longer than 10, 15 minutes. And he was on there for 5 hours. Julene, he must have been a motor mouth, just like us, babe.
Well, that's one of the things I love about Trump is he puts around people that can get the job done. I mean, Witkoff, I'm like, who's Witkoff? He was an attorney. He was a real estate developer in New York. I'm sure he goes back years with President Trump and their dealings in New York City. But he put him on, the president, as a, special envoy to the Middle East and a special envoy to this peace mission. And he got the job done because he probably understands good things happen in a relationship. So before you can bring people together and make things happen, there's got to be some sort of, relationship there. You need to know a little bit about them and their history and what's important to them. And that takes time, right? That takes years and years sometimes, but it certainly takes more than 10 minutes. And if it takes 5 hours on the phone, so be it. I like this guy. I want to be in his foxhole.
I like him too. I think he would ask a lot of questions and we'd have a lot of good conversations. That would be great. Oh my goodness. I know you watched some of the hostages come home. I was really touched by the story of, I'm going to butcher his name. De- Declension.
Come on, say it. It's okay.
Anyway, one of the hostages, he spent almost 500 days in captivity without knowing that his family had survived. When the attack happened, he put his wife and their 2 daughters into a safe room. And he explained that while he was in captivity, which was in a tunnel and dark and very little light, that they were in complete information vacuum. They didn't receive any information whatsoever about the outside world. So during his captivity, he thought his wife and children were dead and he had no life to come home to. Trump met with all the hostages, and Sighed explained his situation to Trump and tearfully thanked President Trump for giving him his life back. He said it was terrifying and I was sure I had no life left. But you gave me my life back when I found out my wife and 3 children had survived and I was going home to be with them. Julene, I cried through that whole one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the scenes of reunion they were like heart-wrenching. They were heartwarming. It was beautiful to see, parents and spouses reunited. I mean, these people have probably been praying over 700 days for this moment, for this nightmare to end and for a reunion to take place. And it was really powerful because I think it helped underscore with all of us that in the end, it doesn't matter what kind of fame or fortune or experiences or whatever we've accomplished. In the end, we just want to be reunited with the people that we love the most. And it's a testimony, I think, to all of us that keep the people we love the most close. If those relationships are, estranged or stressed a little bit, do what you can, because in the end, that's all that matters, right? That's all these people
want. That matters.
Yeah.
You're exactly right, Julene. Thank you for that. It brings, when you take a situation that you're watching on TV and you bring it home to yourself, you're going to grow and you're going to learn from it. I hope this peace will last for a long time. We have to be diligent and we have to work hard to keep the peace. But I'm praying that this kind of horrible, senseless invasion will not happen again. And I hope our listeners, those of you that are praying people, please pray that this kind of violence and problems never happens again. Well, Julene, when we were talking the other day, you said something that I love. You said that President Trump is doing all he can to give us pride in our history and our country. And then we talked about the 250th anniversary of our country and somewhere that Melania and Trump visited.
I think he understands that when our early pilgrims first came to Plymouth, they knew before they got off that ship that this new world, this new land was going to be a light on a hill. And we were supposed to raise the standard of goodness for people throughout the world, based on what was going to transpire on this really sacred and holy spot that they landed. And President Trump is understanding that, when America behaves well and peace keeps and wants to restore, good feeling and civility, all ships rise. When America behaves, all nations behave. And so a part of this behaving is knowing the stories and the miracles of our history and knowing of the heroes of the past and how they performed under fire, so to speak, and how they turned to God. And so he celebrated the 250th anniversary of the Navy a few weeks ago. I think it was October 5th. And I loved seeing all the sailors down in Norfolk, Virginia, on the Harry S. Truman carrier, thousands of them. Then there were bands and they were dressed in their uniforms. And Melania and Trump were there. There was flyovers. I mean, because I live in Washington, D.C., on Friday night, I saw one of the little sailors all dressed in their whites. He was out at a special occasion with a little date. And I congratulated him on the 250th anniversary. And he just lit up under that praise. And he was so sweet and gave me the kindest smile. And he said, "Thank you so much, ma'am." And, it makes me think we're getting a little bit of a snippet of what it's going to look like starting in January 2026 as the president, this administration has a whole series of events of how they're going to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America. And it is going to be amazing, this feeling of pride and patriotism and a kind of a renewed sense of love for America, or a new sense of love. Maybe the young kids haven't been really taught that, but there'll be mobile museums and freedom trucks that will go throughout the country, kind of museums on wheels. There'll be history competitions and a great American State Fair over the 4th of July, about a 3-week period where there'll be music and concerts and speakers and food and patriotic games. And there's going to be a faith initiative. They want 1 million people praying every week for the whole year for America. The Bible Museum is going to collaborate with the White House. And so when you understand from whence you come, you now have a sense of purpose that you want to perpetuate, the good things that have been happened in the past, and you are proud, and it checks your behavior, and it makes you a better person to understand and to celebrate, all the men and women that have done their part in the past to make us who we are today. And it's going to be a good year is all I can say. 2026.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. And I didn't think about it till you were just talking then, but I had an uncle that lived in Norfolk, and he was a Navy higher up. I don't remember what he was, but as a teenager, I went to visit him, and of course the kids that were there, cousins and stuff. And he took us out on a tour of one of the biggest ships that were in the yard at that time.
Yeah.
And I'll save this for another time. But as a teenager, I did something that probably was not right. It was not bad, but it was, just being a teenager on a Navy ship. And yeah, it was like my uncle turned around. What are you doing?
Well, look, founding fathers, I love this book, The 28 Principles That Made America What It Is. They say, Principle 28, that a free people cannot survive unless they stay strong. And the founders knew that meant militarily strong. So we celebrate the victories of our military because, our founders knew, President Trump knows, you have peace through strength. So when other nations can see the strength and the pride of your military, they're less likely to provoke an attack. So, whenever a word of crisis breaks out in the world, in Washington, D.C., the first thing they ask is, where is our nearest carrier? And because we're proud of these, naval carriers that really, they are a show of power, but through peace, that is how they bring peace, because people don't want to act foolish, right? Bring strength, peace through strength. That free people stay strong, or free people are able to survive when they're militarily strong. And so I'm like, let's celebrate the strength of our military, because it has a peacekeeping effect around the world. So those Air Force, or not Air Force, those naval all carriers are amazing.
Oh,
whatever branch of government.
It was amazing. And someday I'll share the story. Kind of crazy. Anyway, Julian, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you teach that part of the communist plan was to destroy as much beauty as possible? That they felt that if a person was steeped in ugliness, that they would be more controllable. Is that right?
Yes. In the early 1900s, the leader of Russia, why can't I think of his name? But if you come to our Making Healing of America class, Seminar 3, the leader knew of Russia that part of our strength of America was our faith. Right? It was unshakable. And where there is faith, there's beautiful depictions, there's beautiful music, there's beautiful art, there's beautiful literature. So he actually hired people, Pablo Picasso was one of them, to make art ugly. So it takes you away from the divine when something is so abstract and perverse, you know? And so there was an attack on our music. There was an attack on our art. There was an attack on our literature and books and so forth. And we have seen 100 years of the arts being made ugly has not strengthened America.
No, it
Taken us away from the heavens and God, which evokes beautiful things.
You're exactly right. And I have lots of psychological reasons for why that is exactly what's happened. But the reason I ask is because while we're talking about him creating patriotic feelings and a pride in America, it seems that Trump is trying to help the American people be proud of their country, but he's also introducing beauty, simple beauty. There's different things that he is beautifying, the White House, and a lot of things he's paying for himself, and he's building gardens, and he's telling people, let's have beautiful things. Well, today I have a little different painting behind me that my dad did, and I was thinking about what an impact my parents made in my life because they helped me to concentrate on beautiful things rather than ugly situations and places. They loved beautiful, comforting music, and it played continuously in our house. They loved scenery and art and good books. It does make a difference in your life, right, Julene?
Oh, 1000%. I came from a home that did the same thing. We were a poor little family, but Mama always had pleasant music and she kept our home tidy and she'd have sweet little depictions of happiness on the wall, Jesus, and just thrift store art, but there was art, lovely pictures depicted on the wall.
And that makes a difference. It really does. Well, we're getting close, maybe a little bit over our time, but I did want to include a quick review and a new topic for protecting your kids against violence. I heard one commentator say that there's no way to protect our kids, but that's not really true. We have to train them, and we have to train them to be good people. But we also have to inform them about destructive behaviors and where they will take us. You can help protect your children from violence by teaching them to love non-violent ways. So here's the plan. You love your child completely. Love must be everywhere. Just fill your house with love. And then number 1, your child must learn respect for you as a parent and mentor. Number 2, you must discipline. Number 3, you must teach communication and how to influence others. In fact, they need to be a Charlie Kirk. Now, they can't be afraid of conversations even when they're hard, right? And today is number 4. They must be unselfish. That's a hard one. Why does that protect us against violence? Because selfishness breeds jealousy, which creates hatred. And those two emotions will bring on deeper thoughts of anger and violence. It's easier to be violent when you can't see any needs other than your own. Teach your children to be proud of others who succeed and to be willing to help others. Some of the most powerful people in the world are those who give unselfishly. And this is a very little known fact. They are powerful because they're willing to take second place in order to help build others up. I've seen Trump and a lot of people do that, and that is absolutely a winning trait to have. What do you think, Julene?
Oh, it's so interesting. In our little family devotional 2 mornings ago with our 17-year-old, we were reading from the Bible about a group of people that were willing to forgive others. And then we started talking about, well, what does that look like in your life? And just recently, there's been a little squabble between she and her sister. And I said, you probably just need to forgive. And forgiveness starts sometimes with just apologizing, even if you're not completely in the wrong, because it gets the ball going. It softens heart when someone acknowledges, oh, I could have done that better. And she said, well, why am I always the one that has to apologize? And I said, honey, again, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about strengthening the relationship. Good things happen in a relationship, but when you're selfish, you just think about you and, and why you're mad and how you've been done wrong. And then the relationship weakens, right? You hit a stalemate. And so, if a child can understand that, we think about others, we think of the big picture sometimes, and we want to think of the big picture all the time. And really, too, like you said, that ability to rejoice as well in other people's successes and not be jealous or critical, but just to say, job well done. That does so much for the soul, not to harbor ill will, and the ability to be able to go, if I concede here that I could have done something wrong, it might look like an apology. If the person that you're dealing with has your best interest, it will soften their heart and it will move that ball forward in that relationship, and clearly there are times in life that, the person you're dealing with has evil intent. So you employ a different strategy. But I think when it certainly comes time to people that you love, unselfishness is like the core, the heart of a strong relationship. And it's those relationships that, make for a strong family, make for a strong neighborhood, community, and nation. So if you keep those family relationships of unselfishness, that attribute going strong, it does spill out into a strong community, strong state, strong nation. And so that is so key. And they see that best played out by you, right? How do you treat people?
Right.
Are you willing to gossip and talk bad and be critical? Are you willing to give some grace and acknowledge you could do better? I'm so sorry. And, kind of get things going again. So your own personal example will be the most powerful when it comes to what unselfishness will look like in their life.
Oh, Julene, I love it. I love it. I love watching other people put these kind of things into practice. I see it in your kids. I see it in your family, and you're doing a great job. And just one point, I know we're way over time. I'd love for us to do one of our gab sessions, Julene, where we go on for a couple hours, but we do need to cut this off. I do want to add that I personally have had I was trying to count some of them, at least 8 or 10 really bad enemies. And I don't mean that they were mean to me or anything. They just weren't on board with a better life. Let's say it that way. And I watched at least 4 of them, about half of them, change their life because I continued to be unselfish and kind to them. When you're unselfish, you get a lot more results than when you hang on to, oh, I got to have this or I've got to have that. And once you experience watching somebody turn around because you're unselfish, then you want to do it more. Yeah. It's kind of addictive that, okay, I'm not going to hurt that person. Yeah. How can I get in there and help them see how they can fix their life so that they feel better? So it's quite a wonderful thing to do.
The gates of hell have no power and control over someone that, can forgive, that can be unselfish. You become a master of your emotions when you can live a selfless life, right? And people are impacted for the good. So I love it, Deb. That might be my word for the week, unselfish. What does that look like, Julene? So thank you. Thanks, Deb.
Oh, thank you. Well, subscribe to this podcast and join us again. You can ask a question or request that we dig into a specific topic by writing Debbie at debbiejansen.com. And thanks again to our wonderful producer, Ken Jansen. This is Debbie Jansen, and I'm sticking to the truth.
And I'm Julene Jackson, and we hope that you will keep sticking to the truth. We will see you next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.